Hello, everyone. One day I will get that intro sting to work. I don't know why it only does it for me, Gianni, but for some reason it never seems to work. All you've got to do is kick the ball to the side, but he somehow manages to mess it up every time. How you doing?
I'm all well, mate. Yeah, I'm very well. How lovely is it to have FPL back
I
again? We've
know,
missed it.
I know, and it's a good feeling, right? Everyone did pretty well. The template performed. Salah did well after Fernandez, so no one was too annoyed about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, lots of the popular picks like Greenwood did well, and Jota scored, and all these guys. So there's a pretty good communal feeling out there ahead of game
Yeah,
week two. Quite rare.
very rare, mate. You look at all your mini leagues, or certainly your mini leagues with like other content creators or other people on Twitter, and everyone is in and around the 100 point mark.
Mm.
Like, and you look at it, and everyone has Salah and Bruno, bar one or two. Poor Ted. Um,
Yeah.
and everyone pretty much captain Salah. I was looking at some of the mini leagues going, literally everyone in here is captain Salah. I don't know if every week's going to be quite that even, but for the time, maybe we'll see again similar results again in game week two with
Mm.
sort of very obvious captain picks and stuff. But yeah, it's nice that everyone is happy. We've all started the season well, which hasn't always been the case.
No, and I think we might see in game week two, if everyone goes for Salah and Bruno does well and Salah doesn't, or vice versa, I think we're definitely going to see more of a split of the captaincy.
Yeah.
We're going to see people maybe shipping out some players like Mahrez and guys who could do well. I think there's more potential in game week two for things to go wrong, but hopefully not. Hopefully, we'll all get 100 points again, and it'll be quite nice. So just to introduce this series, you're very brave. I mean, again. Gianni, coming back and doing these weekly team selections. You didn't have the best season last year, did you?
My worst ever in 14 years of FPL.
Yeah.
Last season was my worst. And of course, that was the first time I did a weekly series on Scout, showing off my team every
I
week.
know. When I suggested you came back and did it again, they were really popular videos. I think people enjoyed watching your pain week on week. So yeah, but hopefully this year we can kick on. And you're already, top 500k. Decent start. So every week we're going to be looking at Gianni's points for the previous week. We're going to be talking about his team for the coming week, and obviously that leads to talks about strategy and subs and transfers and all that stuff. So hopefully there's a bit of entertainment in there with Gianni's pain, and also hopefully some useful tips. Just before we get on to that, I want to talk about Fantasy 5. As I mentioned before, Fantasy Scout are partnered with them. It's a complimentary game to play with FPL that you can play each week. It takes a few minutes to set your team up, and there's just some really good prizes to win. It's completely free to play. You can win 10 grand every week, and then there's other sort of prizes you can win. There's Champions League final tickets if you do well throughout the season consistently. There's a mini league from Fantasy Football Scout with £100 a month prize, and all you have to do is pick players who you think will outscore their FPL target without bonus. So they basically set a target for a player, and if that player does better than that target, then they beat it. And if you get all 5 right, then you get 10 grand. I do it every week. I've done it every week for ages. I've not really got close, but I have to say this week, and we're going to talk more about this at the end of the video. If you're interested, stick around to the end because I'll show you my picks. I think this week is actually looking quite doable. Like I wouldn't say confident, but I'm seeing some players with quite low points targets that I think we could benefit from. So if you're interested, links in the description. Head over to Fantasy 5. It's 3 p.m. on Saturday, so the Liverpool game doesn't count. So you've got plenty of time to set your bust team up. And there's articles and stuff on site to talk about it. Yeah, but free game, 10 grand a week. Why not play? Right, Gianni, let's move on to your week. So what I've done is we've got our nice new graphics, and I thought just to really rub salt in the wounds when you have a rough week, I will put in red all of your players that blank, and I'll put in green all of your players that perform. So anything over, I thought 4 points is probably an okay score. 3 sort of somewhere, Barnes getting 3, it's not great, but not too bad. But then obviously you had a couple of reds. But I have to say, I don't think you're going to have a week like this. I don't think any of us are going to have a week quite like this with so few reds. Just 3 blanks, really, in your team. Sanchez in goal, got 2. Unlucky. Pushed over, Mope pushed over. Refused to believe that wasn't a foul. Shaw 1, Trent 6, Simicast 6. Big score for Salah, 34, captain. Greenwood 8, Barnes 3, Rafinha 1, Fernandez 20 points, Antonio 13, amazing performance, and Ing 7. Happy?
Very happy, not just with the score, because everyone got the same score, so you don't feel massive gains there. It's more, I'm happy with my team moving forward. If I was creating a team now from game week 2 onwards, I would have loads of the same players. Like, I don't have that envy. I don't have that FOMO. There's 1 or 2 players that I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have them and I'm probably not going to get them in the next few, like your Ben Ramas. But there's very few of them. And that's quite rare for game week 2. Often by game week 2, we've got a list of transfers we already want to make. I haven't really got one of those. So I'm actually very happy, not just with the points, but with the look of the squad.
Good. Yeah. And that's the main thing, isn't it? I mean, saving a transfer seems to be, the play for most people. I think unless you don't have Fernandes, I wonder if Ted is thinking, oh God, I need to rip my team up now to get him in. I think if you've got Gundogan as well, obviously there's an injury there. But everyone else, I think most people are willing to give them another chance. I think Barnes is someone we're going to talk about probably a fair bit. I mean, I went into the match with a lot of confidence in him getting something against Wolves. Had a decent performance, but subbed at 70 minutes like we kind of thought we would. What's your kind of feelings on him? You're happy to stick with him, I guess.
Yeah, I'm so happy with Harvey Barnes. Like, I'm actually quite surprised his ownership's not higher. But of course, when he returns 3 points, you don't expect people to start buying him. But I thought he'd go into the season slightly higher. Rodgers had said before he's not fully up to speed, so we didn't expect him to play 90. What we do know about Harvey Barnes is he's one of Rodgers' go-to players. He was amazing last season before he picked up the big injury. He was getting in the England squad, remember? And when Harvey Barnes was injured, Rodgers had to completely change his formation to play with a front 2. Now, that massively worked for Iheanacho. Leicester did all right off it. It didn't work for Vardy. Vardy likes to be the lone striker, and he likes wide forwards either side. And I think we saw how Rodgers set up in game week 1. For the first 60, 70 minutes, it was the setup that we know he's gone with in the past, with wide forwards, Vardy down the middle by himself. That did change to a front 2 with about half an hour to go. We saw Harvey Barnes and Vardy playing in a top 2, which again is great for Barnes owners. And then, of course, Barnes was sacrificed, as you expect, for a striker coming off the bench. But I do think we'll start to see Barnes getting longer minutes. He's not the type that will always get 90, but that doesn't bother me. He shoots on sight. He might play in a front 2. If not, he's in a front 3 wide. Leicester have got some good fixtures. They're a team that will win quite a lot of games and score quite a lot of goals. For me, Barnes is going nowhere. And I know in the chat there's been talk of, should I move Barnes onto a Greenwood, or should I get a Man City player in? For me, stay a little bit more patient with Harvey Barnes.
Yep, no, I agree. Is there any concerns about Iheanacho sort of coming in? I mean, he seems too good to be benched. If we've seen it in the Community Shield now, we saw it game week 1. Yeah. You've got to think he's going to come back into the side. I don't think it's going to be at the expense of Barnes, because I think Barnes is probably their best player at Leicester at the moment, which is saying something. I mean, obviously Vardy is there, but maybe getting on a little bit. But showed what he can do. I mean, his celebration as well, the howling to the Wolves fans. Oh, I love that. But yeah, I wonder if the system's going to be tweaked a little bit to kind of incorporate Iheanacho and Barnes.
There is an obvious play here where you get all 3 of them in the team, but it means you've got to have Iheanacho as a wide forward, which he's not, or you go for a front 2 of Vardy and Iheanacho, but then where does Harvey Barnes play? And in pre-season, I think for one game in pre-season, for around half a match, we saw Harvey Barnes playing number 10, which was really cool. Like, I would love to see more of that. A little bit like what Rodgers did at times with Raheem Sterling when he was at Liverpool, kind of played him at times sort of centrally when there was Sturridge and Suarez ahead of him. And I wonder if we could see Barnes playing in the 10 pocket. Maddison's playing a little bit deeper perhaps this season, and also not absolutely nailed. Him and Rodgers definitely don't see eye to eye all the time. We know that. And Perez has been getting game time. So if you bring Perez out the team and put Iheanacho in the team, it needs some shifting around. But is Perez a first 11 player for Leicester? I don't think he will be, which means there is potentially space. It just might mean a slight reshuffle in system. But regardless, Barnes and Vardy are safer than Iheanacho, despite Iheanacho's great form. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they set up and if we see Maddison slightly deeper. But yeah, for me, Barnes is the one out of those 3 that I'd want.
They've just got so many options and so many systems they can play. I mean, in some ways, you think almost a 4-4-2 would be good. Barnes on the left and then Vardy and Iheanacho up front. But then you've got Tielemans, Maddison, and Didi, who obviously all want to play. So what do you go 5-3-2? But then where does Barnes play in that? Does he play at wing back? Well, he can't really because they've got Castagna and players. So
Pereira.
I mean, they've got so many different systems, so many different ways they can play. But I I mean, Iheanacho with the season that he had last season and the new contract, and I think Barnes is about to sign a new contract. I guess Iheanacho is being marked as like the kind of long-term Vardy sort of replacement. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to know how he fits in this year. Okay, so just go through some of your other blanks. So Sanchez in goal, are you still confident with him? My confidence in Brighton was never really that high, and he's probably the one player in my team that I look at and I think, yeah, I could maybe have been a bit braver and gone for someone else here. Raya looked straight away. I was like, yeah, Raya, like he was playing Arsenal. They had no strikers and decent fixtures. Maybe I should have gone for him. Any regrets with Sanchez?
Yeah, no regrets as such. I must admit, I said this to Joe in my team reveal video. I was quite adamant that I wasn't going to go with Sanchez, and I like the 5 million keepers. Yeah, I did what we all do, where you're setting up your team early in pre-season. You've got your 5 million keeper that you're happy with, whether it's Meslier, Henderson, Pickford, whoever, Schmeichel, some good keepers in that 5 million bracket. And then what you do is you look at your premium assets, your midfielders at 7.5. You go, I just need 500,000 extra. Where am I going to skim it off the top? Oh, you look at your goalkeepers and you go 5 million down to 4.5. Oh, that gets me Harvey Barnes instead of whoever. Let's do it. So I did what every FPL manager does, and I skimmed at the back. And in the 4.5 category, I still think Sanchez could outperform Backman, Raya. But it is slim pickings. I'm not sold by any of them. The Sanchez, the bonus is we expect more clean sheets than the other keepers at 4.5, but we don't get the save points in the bonus with Sanchez. We know that. But at 4.5, if you get a fair few 6-pointers, you're probably happy. But yeah, I must admit, Brentford impressed me. And I'll be interested to watch them moving forward. And maybe if I was to go into an early wild card, I'd look at Brentford over Brighton, especially because by then, game week 5, 6, 7, wherever, Brighton's fixtures will be starting to take a little bit of a dip.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with Brighton, and something that I always knew, was we concede stupid goals, which is not ideal for a keeper, obviously, in your team. I mean, I still think we were unlucky against. I mean, the first half, to be fair, we could have been about 4-0 down, but the actual goal they scored, I think I'd maintain that was definitely a foul. But yeah, Sanchez, I'm not sure how many saves he's going to get, and I'm not sure how many clean sheets we're going to get if we carry on conceding. So I don't know. I feel a bit of regret sort of having him in my side, but hopefully he can deliver. What about Shaw? I mean, I guess not too many concerns with Shaw. I mean, Varane's come in now. He's 5.5 in the game, same price as Shaw, but you're going to stick with Luke, aren't you?
Yeah, and when he blanks in my team and he blanks in everyone else's, right? Is he the highest owned player in the game? Sure, I think he's might
up
be.
There. He's not in my team. Is
he not? Oh, fair play. Well, I
was very happy when Eiling smashed one in from outside the area, I have to say.
Yeah, I bet you were. And I know you're not one that cares about things like effective ownership, so many would call you brave for going without Shaw, so well played, because, yeah, if you don't fancy him, you don't fancy him. Don't put him in because everyone else has.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say it's because, like, I've found some hidden stat that makes me think he's not an amazing pick. I mean, I think, like I've said, I think he is a good pick. Just I wanted to say I needed 0.5, and I went for Soufal instead, who I also like. So
yeah,
I'm not sure Shaw is essential. I don't think he's going to be regularly hitting double-digit returns, and he's going to ruin my season. But we'll see.
Yeah, it was an interesting one at the end of last season. He was doing so well, and he threatened to get so many assists. But when you look at the actual numbers, the actual returns, they weren't there. Yes, all the expected returns were there, but the actual numbers weren't. Wan-Bissaka got more assists in the last flurry of games than Shaw. What I would say is if Pogba does stay on the left, we saw from Pogba's 4 assists, and I don't actually think he will stay on the left, but if he does, 3 of his assists came from central positions. Pogba is not going to hug the touchline. He's not going to play where Rashford plays. So that does create a lot of space for the overlap of Shaw, which should mean he's even more advanced in the right games. But we know against Leeds, they often have the ball. They make you work hard. Perhaps you're not going to get in those advanced positions. You want Shaw against Southampton. This weekend could be a really big game for him, for example, against a struggling defence that won't have much of the ball. So yeah, definitely one to watch. But I'm fairly happy owning him, and the set-piece threat as well. United have the new set-piece coach. We saw in pre-season a Shaw corner and a Maguire header. I think it was against Everton. And I just wonder if we're finally going to get Maguire scoring some goals from corners, because he gets his head on everything but never scores. And I wonder if Shaw corners are going to be crucial to that too. We haven't always seen him on set pieces, and he will be this season.
The problem with Maguire is the amount of chances he has from set pieces. It's his accuracy. He
Yeah.
has. I think he has more shots than any other defender. But
Yeah,
you know,
he wins everything, doesn't
But
he?
he just
Yeah.
can't. He just can't hit the bloody target. So
Yeah.
you know that'll be something that I'm sure they're going to be trying to get more of, because when you win the header that much, it's a massive like advantage for your team. So you've got to think he's going to get a few more. So the last player that blanked in your team was Rafinha. I couldn't believe it when he missed that chance towards the end of the match. I mean, that was like absolute, perfect for him, I thought, and hit it wide, got booked. Quite a muted performance from him and the rest of the Leeds team. What are your feelings with Rafinha?
Yeah, it's a funny one because that chance goes in and you're looking at a fairly healthy return when perhaps you don't expect it. What I love about Rafinha and just having a Leeds midfielder in general is that almost fixture proof. Like we saw Rafinha last season get points against the likes of Man City and Man United. So you don't have to worry too much. When you pick players from teams that are perhaps lower half teams or mid-table teams, fairer to say with Leeds, then you sometimes worry that you've got to bring them out so much because of fixtures. With Rafinha, you don't have to do that. He is one, and at 6.5, you ideally want to play them every week. You don't have to worry too much about rotating him. It's harder to predict his points because he can turn up against the big teams. But again, I look at it and I think the Everton fixture is really nice this weekend for Leeds. I think he's on the set pieces. He is the main man there alongside Bamford. And I think he's been really underpriced by FPL. I'm delighted with his price at 6.5. It just looked too good value to ignore. Saying that, if he doesn't produce in the first 3-4 game weeks and he blanks in the first 3, his price will drop very quickly because he's fairly highly owned. He's around 20-ish%. He's 18%. So yeah, he's in for the time being, but I wouldn't be opposed to getting rid if I had to. But for now, he's in.
He's a bit like, well, I mean, he's not. This is a very loose comparison. He's a bit like. Do you remember Yilmaz? I played the fan team game.
Yeah.
I think, and there was a guy that Yilmaz. He was a Turkey striker, and he was
4.5.
Yeah, he was like the cheapest player, and so it was so cheap. It was like almost like a gift because it was just like I've got to get him because he's this price. Didn't score, didn't assist, and ended up ruining quite a few of my teams. I don't think that's going to be Rafinha because I think Rafinha is absolutely class. But I think you're right. The fixtures aren't good at the start, and I do think if he blanks in the first 3, which is a possibility given that they're fairly tough, you're going to have to be really patient to hold him, even though the fixtures are getting better. So it's an interesting one. I mean, you haven't got Tony, for example, who played well against Arsenal, man of the match, but didn't get a goal. So I guess that was your choice, right? Go for Tony or Rafinha at 6.5.
As that is the only substitute transfer I made in the final week. I didn't create drafts. I just had my one team and I fiddled with it loads, right? In the last 5-6 days from the Monday night when I think Simiskas played, so 5 days, I made one transfer and it was, do I go with Tony or do I go with Rafinha? And it came down to going, what if I don't wildcard in game week 4 or 3 or game week 7 and I'm not wildcarding until December? Who do I want for the first 15 or so fixtures? Hands down, it was Rafinha, right? But I was with Tony, perhaps because I was a bit scared because everyone had him and I knew I was going to fest on Friday night with a room full of 90% full of Tony owners. But then I was going, no, this could be a good season. I might not be forced into that wild card and I want Rafinha longer term. So I was delighted when he blanked. Brentford obviously looked good and I think he will get points, but I do genuinely think over the course of a season, Rafinha outscores Tony. It's just, are you going to be on the beach at the right time? No doubt Tony will feature in my team at some point, but I needed Antonio. I was keen on Ings and Rafinha, got the nod over Tony, but it was a close call.
Yeah, and I think that kind of that 6-5-6 bracket is really opening up. I mean, you saw Ben Rama there at 6. Greenwood up to 7.5, but this kind of like 6 to 7.5 mil bracket is we're getting some options. I mean, Sar's there now at 6, who I thought was probably arguably one of the strongest performing players of the week. I mean, like I said with Sam, I think he's ended Target's career. I'd be amazed if he even stepped on the football pitch again. He just rinsed him over and over again and then got subbed at half time. It doesn't get much worse. So I think these guys like Tony and Rafinha are okay. We see the potential in them. We know what they're capable of, but I do think they're going to have to perform soon in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, they're going to be kind of first names on the chopping block. Right, so let's move on to your team for the coming week. It's identical to the team I've just shown, which is why I've dilly-dallied a little bit. You've got Sanchez and goal at home to Watford, Shaw away at Southampton, Trent and Tsimikas at home to Burnley, Salah captain, we'll talk about that in a sec, Greenwood, Barnes away to West Ham, Rafinha at home to Everton, Fernandes, Antonio and Ings. Pretty much the template, except for Barnes, probably your one player who's not in everyone's team at the moment.
Greenwood, Greenwood too.
Yeah, I think Greenwood was pretty popular, and I think he's even more so now. You're very confident on Greenwood, aren't you? I saw your tweet, yesterday saying, nailed on. Everyone needs to buy him. It was one of these very like abrasive tweets, which is like, I am Gianni, I'm right. Everyone listen to me.
It was a clickbait tweet.
It was a proper clickbait tweet, and you got me clicked in, and yeah, it was very clever. But I know what you're saying. But yeah, talk to me about Greenwood. You're confident with him, right?
Yeah, I think I commented on your post saying I could have gone softer with this. What I should have said or could have said, but actually decided not to, was Greenwood is nailed for the next couple, and I would buy him if I was a Jota or whoever owner.
It's not quite as catchy, is it?
Gundogan.
When you have to word it like that. No.
Exactly. So let's just go with the fact he's nailed and I'm right. But no, I mean, Greenwood's like 8% owned. So amongst Twitter, yeah, you'd think that's higher, and it is. But there's a lot of teams without Greenwood, and I was really pleased to see him get 8 points. It could have been more against Leeds. Playing as the number 9, he's the best finisher at Old Trafford, and Ollie knows that. Like, Gary Neville has said it for a long time. He's the best finisher at the club. I feel like there's loads of reasons why he's going to play the next few games. And to say he's nailed is a little bit perhaps far-fetched moving forward. But certainly for the next couple, knowing Cavani hasn't returned yet, I think he's nailed as the 9. He's definitely ahead of Martial in the order there. When Sancho comes in, Sancho could play left. We could see Pogba playing a central 2. That still gives the right-hand channel to Greenwood, which we saw him play so well last season. So I think even when Sancho is in the team and Cavani is in the team, for as long as Rashford is out, I think Greenwood's got a very good chance of playing the vast majority of games. Now, it depends how you want to pick up nailed. You could say nailed means he's 100% safe every single week, but come on, there's very few players in our league which you can bank on that, certainly 7.5 midfielders. But I like to think as nailed as he's going to start in 8, 9 and 10 games, right? At that price point. And I think he will, for as long as Rashford's injured. I really do. One way or another, he plays, whether it's number 9, whether it's on the right, for the reasons I mentioned. I also think Ollie likes having, and this is pretty casual reasoning, but Ollie likes having some of his homegrown talent on the pitch. I genuinely think that, especially for games at Old Trafford. With Rashford out, you've got Greenwood, local boy, done good. I genuinely think there's a little bit that goes, there's another reason why I think he's going to start. Of course, if the goals dry up, he's not nailed by any stretch of the imagination. But for as long as he looks good, his chemistry with Bruno was almost like a front 2, right? Bruno playing off him was so good. Those two are footballers on the same wavelength, left foot, right foot. I'd get him in my team, even if it was short term and Rashford was back in a few weeks. I'd still want him for game week 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, Solskjaer's the kind of, he's been an academy manager before, isn't he? He's managed the likes of Pogba and Lingard, and he's definitely a manager which is that kind of fathery figure to players. And I think out of everyone in the team, I think he sees Greenwood as that kind of. I think he probably sees a lot of himself in Greenwood as well. Because they're sort of fairly similar type players. I mean, just absolutely lethal finishers. Yeah. Cavani's obviously a threat, but I just think Greenwood has got this. I mean, Greenwood was superb against Leeds. I mean, the amount of mistakes Leeds made particularly in that first half, and Greenwood's there just capitalising on, winning the ball, surging forward, and only needs sort of 1 or 2 chances. So yeah, I think he's a great option. I think fairly nailed is probably how I'd describe him. I think if things aren't going the way of United, I think he could be an early sub. When they try and change things up, either on the right. They can move Sancho over to the right and bring Martial onto the left, or Cavani could come on. But yeah, I think security of starts wise, I think you're probably right. I think he starts for the next 2 or 3. So
great to see him get 90 as well. Like he wasn't
absolutely
sacrificed, so that was really nice. And the fixtures, just looking at United's next couple, Southampton's brilliant. Wolves away could be great. Potentially loads will be giving Bruno the armband that week, and then it's Newcastle. So that's 3 really nice games, and Cavani might not be up to speed till Newcastle. So yeah,
yep.
Decent.
So if you've got Gundogan, I'm guessing, and if you've got Gundogan and haven't got Greenwood, I'm guessing that is probably your transfer that you would advise.
Yeah, that was the tweet. That's why I tweeted. it was if you haven't got Gundogan or you're worried about if you've got Gundogan or you're worried about Jota's minutes, then he's the perfect replacement. But didn't quite have the same catch, did it? So I went with it.
We're limited on characters, aren't we? We've got to be
absolutely.
What about Mahrez? Would you be tempted to move Mahrez down to Greenwood, or do you think you've got to hold him for Norwich?
I think you've got to hold him for Norwich. When you bought Mahrez, and there's loads of you that bought Mahrez, you didn't buy him just for game week 1. You bought him with Norwich in mind. You all bought him with Norwich in mind. With your Man City assets, you don't sell them ahead of Norwich. Maybe come game week 3 you do, because we all knew Pep Roulette was going to become a factor from game week 3 onwards. I think Mahrez is pretty safe to start. Will he play 90? No, he won't. He rarely does. He didn't in game week 1. But you bought Mahrez for Norwich. See it through. Would I captain Mahrez against Norwich? Absolutely not. I wouldn't.
Yep.
Which begs the question, if you were never going to captain him against Norwich, was it worth putting him in your team at that price, knowing he wasn't a captaincy option against perhaps the weakest team in the league? But, maybe we've just been influenced by Bruno and Salah's hauls. Maybe you planned to captain Mahrez in game week 2, and now sensibly you're not going to, because you've seen what happened in game week 1.
Yeah, well, I guess, if Salah and Fernandes hadn't done as well as they did, I guess it is another option, isn't it? I don't think it's a bad idea to have players that you might consider, especially going into like a new season. I think there could have been players that emerged that if Villa had put in a really strong performance against Watford, for example, we might be thinking, Danny Ings at home to Newcastle, he could be a bit of a differential punt. If we'd seen something from Southampton to indicate they're not going to be terrible, we might be considering it. Salah v Burnley is an issue. Salah scored, Liverpool score an average of 2.5 goals, I think, against Burnley in the matches they play. But Salah tends to struggle. They do seem to have a bit of a number on him. He doesn't score a huge amount of goals against them. Let's talk about the captaincy then. So you've got it on Salah at the moment. Fernandes vice. Are you? It was locked in Salah, I'm guessing, before game week 1. But now, is there part of you that's thinking maybe change it onto Fernandes?
Yeah, it's not game week 1 felt like an easy decision. And I know Bruno outscored him, but it felt like an easy decision, right? This doesn't. I think watching Southampton at the back, absolutely, they just went to pot, didn't they? Against Everton, they were all over them. And Everton attack, I don't think is going to be outstanding under Rafa. I just think Southampton collapsed. And United are the best team in the league at bullying teams when they're already ahead, I think, especially late in games. There's a lot of games where United are often at 1-1 until the 80th minute and end up winning 4-1. They can just score goals on every attack late in games. And I can see them doing that against Southampton. The question is, can Southampton keep it tight for a while until that happens? And I think maybe they have a chance. I do think Liverpool could steamroll Burnley. Burnley, we know, are often struggle against the big teams. We know they struggle against Liverpool, especially away from home. I think the home advantage perhaps spins it for me with the Anfield fans as well. We can't underestimate a full Anfield. And Salah hasn't played in front of a full Anfield much in the last 18 months. And it just feels like the fans being the 12th man could be the difference here. I can't see my head spinning. I think I am set on Salah, but I completely understand for all of you that will go Bruno. I see the reasoning behind it. Also, I do have Greenwood, so I've got United attack doubled already. So by having Salah captain, I'm effectively doubling my Liverpool attack too. So I'm kind of hedging my bets and spreading it there, knowing that I'm on double United already. So if I captain Bruno, I'd be on triple United and single Liverpool. Now I'm on double both.
Yeah, I guess my kind of thinking with Liverpool is it's obviously a great fixture against Burnley, but Burnley are going to defend so deep in that game, and Salah won't get much space. So it's almost like he's going to need to kind of create a moment of magic to get something, and he could do. It's Salah; he could easily get 2 or 3 goals, and no one would bat an eyelid. I kind of feel like in some ways though, the home crowd of Southampton might urge them on to attack more, and then you've got more space for the likes of Fernandes, Sancho, Greenwood to really, really punish them. And it's like Southampton don't have the defence to do that, even if they sit back, let alone if they're then venturing forward a little bit and trying to bring the game to United. I think United could just absolutely tear them apart. So I kind of feel like Liverpool will get two or 3 goals sort of fairly comfortably. But I wouldn't be surprised to see United maul Southampton, like 5 or 6. So, yeah.
They're the best in the business, aren't they, at mauling teams?
They are.
I feel.
And Southampton are the best in the business for getting mauled.
Yeah, was it Leicester that went to St Mary's and scored 9 2 seasons ago on that Friday night game in the rain? It was Vardy and Barnes ran riot, and Southampton were the
early
home team
sending
then.
off. That's normally their problem in these games. Early sending off in that game. They got mauled by United last season. 9-0 or 8-0 something, and that was that was a sending off as well. So that seems to be the thing, their problem. But then look at Spurs at the beginning of last season, beating like 6 past them or something.
Are you going Bruno then, Az?
I'm on the fence. I'm not as sure on Salah as I think a lot of people are. I think before this week I was, but seeing how bad Southampton were and seeing how quickly United came out of the blocks. I mean, Liverpool played well, but Liverpool's performance I felt was very much down to Salah being like absolutely incredible. And there were some good performances of the rest of the pitch, but it was mostly him. Whereas United was such a great team performance, and with Sancho coming into the side, I just think they could really, really put down a marker in this game, and I think it's just a great time to play Southampton. So I'm leaning towards Bruno, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tsimikas. Let's talk about Tsimikas.
Robertson. Robertson's
pictures.
back training, isn't he?
Ooh, nervous.
The good thing is, for me, it's just keep calm, carry on. Like seeing Robertson train, jogging. We know he's not going to play game week 2, but there's a good chance now he could play game week 3. Well, the good news is we're all benching Tsimikas in game week 3 anyway, because it's Chelsea and we've all got Trent, and that's probably enough, right? One Liverpool defender against Chelsea. I always plan to bench him. So I'm all right with it. It's if I get 6 points again this weekend, it will be the best 4 million purchase at the start of a season, a 6-pointer and a 6-pointer.
Yeah.
And yes, he then rots on my bench until our wild card, probably. And if that wild card doesn't come to December, maybe I have to use one of my precious transfers, but that seems all right. That seems all right and worth it to me. I don't think I'm ever going to want that. I know loads of people are put off by occupying the 3rd Liverpool spot. There's too much talent in this season's game for me to want to get on a 3rd Liverpool attacker at any point. So a Mane or a Jota, I never thought that would be me. So that doesn't come into it for me, because I'm going to be targeting a Lukaku or a Kane or whoever. So I don't mind eating up the Liverpool spot. It's just, does my bench become really stale and need some refreshing? Hopefully not, because I've got the likes of Ayling and White there. But yeah, if I get 6 points this weekend, I'll be delighted, and he'd have done his job. I don't expect any more than those 2 games.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think my biggest worry about Tsimikas was wanting Jota, and I thought if he put in a really, really strong performance against Norwich, then I might be like, oh, he might be someone I want to move to. He did put in a strong performance against Norwich, but then got subbed at 60 minutes.
Yeah,
and that's the issue with him. I just think he's obviously such a talented player, such a threat when he plays, but he's just got Firmino knocking around, who actually looks like he's entering into some decent goal-scoring form at the moment. For once, yeah. And he's just the first sacrifice. He's either not going to play or he's going to be one of the first sacrifices. And I think, like you say, I think there's just too many options, I think, to go for that.
One to keep an eye on with Jota, I think, because I know lots want him to play all 4. I think last season, all 4, the Fab 4 started in the league like 4 times. Like they get very few starts with all of them. And if Firmino does hit form, could we see, and Mane doesn't hit the form because he hasn't looked like he's going to so far. He didn't look great against Norwich, didn't look great for parts of last season. Could we see Jota as a contender to have that left side spot, which he played a lot at Wolves, left of the attack? So could we see a front 3 of Jota, Firmino and Salah? Maybe one day we do, maybe Mane is dropped, but for the time being, I'm with you. I think he's just way too much of a rotation risk to consider. But watch the space with Mane.
Yep, agreed. So final question for you. Boring team. Everyone's got a boring team. It's not just you. Yeah. I've got a boring team. Mark's got a boring team. Everyone's boring. Are you looking for ways in which you could kind of differentiate this team, like going forward? Are there players that you've seen so far that you think could be an option that kind of break this template mould? I mean, I've mentioned Sarr. I think the fixtures turned really nice for Watford in game week 4. If he's on penalties as well, and Watford, show more attacking signs that they did, I think he could be an absolutely great option. Anyone else that you're impressed with?
Yeah, it's a hard one because I must admit, I don't enjoy this game when I have a really template team. And this team, I could carry on for the next few weeks and keep a rank at 300k or maybe better if I keep getting, good returns. And I don't think I'll be that excited by it. It's very easy management. This isn't. I'm not managing a team really. I'm just picking the popular assets and they're doing well. And I don't get the same enjoyment from it. I had loads of enjoyment last season, despite having a terrible year. For the few weeks I did do well last season, and there were very few of them, it was brilliant because when I did well, everyone else was doing rubbish because my team was so anti-template. And I loved it. I loved having Bale when everyone else had Kane and whatever. But I do want to play safer this year. Doing these videos, by the way, part of the reason why I think I was so poor last year, I was probably trying to be too cool for school. I hold my hands up. I was conscious that Scout had said, come on board as a pro pundit, or let's show off a bit. And it backfired. I went without Salah early on. I didn't have Bruno till December. What was I thinking? I look back and think, you idiot. But at the same time, my natural management style is to be a little bit more risky, and I will definitely be building that in this season, but the plan was always to start safe. So the way I can see myself maybe evolving this team on is by probably going with the heavy hitter strategy, which I've done okay off in the past, where I have one more premium than most, and that means I've got quite a few sort of 6 million players starting, but to get that extra premium, I want a team of Salah, Bruno, and Lukaku, and I still want Trent, I still want Shaw, and I still want Greenwood. So if I can create Danny Ings into Lukaku in a few weeks' time, which I think is possible, then that becomes a little bit of a differential just by owning those 3 premiums together. So that's the plan, although Chelsea's fixtures don't really turn really good till game week 7. So that plan might be a slightly longer strategy, but downgrading Ings, perhaps downgrading Rafinha, soon gets me Lukaku. Maybe one other downgrade in there is needed. I think it would be. But maybe Greenwood or Barnes eventually come down to a Benrahma, and then Rafinha goes down to Brownhill and Ings is up to Lukaku. That works out okay. So definitely one to keep an eye on, that I will be going for. I want to go with a big hitter strategy.
I think game week 4, we're going to start seeing some changes. I think not just with you, but with everyone. I think at the moment, the template's strong. The fixtures are good. There's no need to make sort of wholesale changes. I think game week 4, we start to see teams like Leeds and Watford start to do better. And we might have some underperforming players. Aston Villa's fixtures turn. So I think there's going to be quite a few people getting rid of Ings, this kind of stuff. And then game week 7, we've then got the big Chelsea swing. So then you're going to see even more differential people. You know, some people go triple Chelsea. Some don't risk the rotation, options. I mean, look at Alonso scoring, and, because Chilwell to me was absolutely nailed on. But now I'm thinking, I don't know if I really want to go there. Reece James, oh no, now we've got this new guy who's scored and looks really good. So, we're going to start seeing some different strategies around that. And then a few weeks after that, United's fixtures just turn absolutely crazy. And I think Sancho will be embedded in the team then. So it's how do we get him in? I think the one player that we haven't really talked about, and we will talk about just quickly before I let you go, is Son. So Son could be a player who shakes things up. He's sort of fairly highly owned in the game, but only quite a few people went through on Twitter and Scout and stuff. You don't really have any way of getting him in with your team, similar to me, unless we kind of make some big changes. But he could be someone who we need to consider, right? Yeah,
game week. So we're probably, many of us are going to hit game week 3 with 2 transfers, aren't we? For those that aren't making a transfer this week. So I have looked at it, and I could sell Danny Ings to whoever, and then upgrade one of my mid-price midfielders to Son if Danny Ings comes down. Now, Danny Ings I want to be selling for game week 4, but in game week 3 does have Brentford. I ideally want him, but Son has Watford at home game week 3. He's a really good captaincy option, knowing Salah plays Chelsea. United do go to Wolves, so many will go Bruno. But I have looked at it and thought, maybe Son as a short-term pick. I really want to know what's happening with Harry Kane. I actually prefer Son without Kane. And I know Son's a brilliant asset with and without Kane, and the numbers show that. Every time Kane's out the team, Son's numbers don't dip at all. But knowing now he'll be playing as the out-and-out number 9, and he's on pens without Kane, it does make him really attractive. But the jury's still out on Spurs against weaker teams. And I only say that because of their manager. We know from Wolves, Nuno plays okay football, doesn't concede many, but doesn't score many goals either. And I just want to know how Spurs are going to play against weaker opposition when they've got the ball a lot. Are they going to be scoring 3-4 a game? Or are they going to look like they're going to score 3-4 a game? If they do, I want Kane. If he stays, I want Son. If they don't, then maybe Spurs defence, Reguilon at 5 million is the way to go. Because we know Nuno teams can keep it tight at the back. At Wolves, we all wanted a Wolves defender the season before last. So definitely one to watch. and maybe Son for game week 3. But again, that may hinder my Lukaku moves for later down the line. So I'm not convinced on where I'm going to go yet. I think game week 2 will show us a lot.
I think Son's going to be that player who Spurs don't necessarily score that many, but he's always going to be involved. And it's, I think that's going to be the really tricky part of trying to fit him in with all these other premium options going round. Is do you go for, Salah and Fernandes who can hit kind of 4 or 5 goals and you wouldn't be surprised? But I don't think Spurs are going to regularly do that. But even if they win 1-0, if Son hasn't scored it, you'd be surprised in some ways. So yeah, he's definitely really strong. I agree about Spurs. I think the performance they put in against City was absolutely brilliant. Can they do that week in, week out? Are they going to be able to get to those levels again, like at Wolves, like this week, for example? I'm not entirely convinced they will. So yeah, we'll just have to see. But yeah, I'm happy to wait a week and then. But yeah, if Son does well again against Wolves, and then he's going into Watford at home, and we've got 2 free transfers like a lot of us are going to, I think there's going to be lots of people making the switch.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And again, like the transfer window, of course, is open till the end of game week 3, like end of August. The Harry Kane situation could change everything. We will be ripping up our plans if Harry Kane goes to City. And I don't think he will, but if he does go to City, changes everything. We will all want him.
Like, I think he will. I think he will.
Do you reckon?
Yeah,
do you reckon?
I when they bought Grealish, I thought, no way. And then I heard that Pep Guardiola press conference where he openly said we've bid and they've rejected it and we want to negotiate.
No.
And I just think there's not really any way back for Kane at Spurs. I think City will come in with an improved bid, and I think Levy will take it. I mean, there's rumours they're going to offer 125, 130 million, which is short of the 150 million that he wants. But it's a tricky situation. Yeah, it's a tricky situation for everyone, I think, now. And in some ways, it might just be easiest if Spurs just accept it, and they've shown they can win without him. Game week 1. Yeah. Interesting one. Very interesting one. Right, Gianni, thank you so much for talking to me. I'm just going to quickly go through my Fantasy 5 team, if anyone is interested in that. So, like I said, I've picked a few players here who I think have got some pretty low targets. So Calvert-Lewin's at 6.5 against Leeds, and they were getting balls to him all the time. So he needs to get a goal and assist or 2 goals, but I think that's possible. Duffy, most shots of all defenders, playing Watford next. I think a clean sheet could be on the cards for him, and could get a goal as well. Sancho 7.5, really low points target for him. I think this is probably the lowest we're ever going to see Sancho's points targets, especially against Southampton as well. So only needs a goal and a clean sheet, and he's matched it. I've gone for Dele Alli, same against Wolves, back in the team, just needs a goal, and Saka. Again, I think he's going to come back into the side. They need someone to come in and do something. Obviously, if there's, we'll see what Arteta says. If he's not ready, then he won't play. But all of these guys basically only need one attack in return to get through, and they're all players capable of doing it. So that's why I've gone for these guys. Anyone that you think might be a decent shout?
Yeah, the only one I guess I'm not 100% sold on, and that's only based on minutes, is Sancho. Just thinking, will he, won't he, in terms of start? And if he does start, does he come off at 60? Probably. But I'm with you. Like, you're not going to see many games where his points total is so low.
I mean, Fernandes is 12.5, for example.
Wow. So... What's Greenwood as? Is Greenwood an option? Just knowing if this like Greenwood's flavour of the week for me.
I think he might be 8.5, which means he needs to get 2 attacking returns. Because that's the beauty with Sancho, is he just needs that 1 goal. And clean sheet, whereas Greenwood would need to get 2.
I mean, you could see Sancho coming off the bench for half an hour against a very tired Southampton because they've been chasing shadows all game and getting points. So I like it.
He looked sharp when he came on, Sancho. I thought a couple of he was almost playing in like central midfield for some of it. He's getting the ball quite deep and running with it, and he's. I've got no doubt he's going to be a hell of a player at United. So interesting to see what happens with him. Gianni, thanks so much. First team selection done. As I said, we'll be doing these every week. To see how you're getting on. I'm glad you said that you won't be completely boring every week and you will try and at least spice up a little bit. Makes these videos a bit more interesting. But yeah, if you've liked this video, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can get updates whenever these are on. Make sure you like this video and drop some comments in and let us know what you think of Gianni's team. I think the word template might be bandied around a little bit, but hopefully that'll change. Gianni, thanks so much for joining me, and I will speak to you next week.
Sounds good. See you next week, mate.
Thanks, everyone.